Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. The European Central Bank, ECB, delivered a widely expected 25 basis point rate cut today, marking its third consecutive rate reduction. This brings the total rate cuts since June to 100 basis points, effectively lowering the benchmark rate by the same amount in 2024. Bloomberg covered this major move with the headline, ECB cuts for third straight time to prop up flagging economy. The report highlighted the ECB's shift in tone, signaling a more dovish stance. Notably, the ECB dropped its previous language about maintaining restrictive rates for as long as necessary. Instead, ECB President Christine Lagarde stated that future rate decisions would be data-dependent and made on a meeting-by-meeting basis. Lagarde's remarks reflected the ECB's more optimistic outlook on inflation. The bank no longer emphasizes returning inflation to its 2% target as the main priority. Instead, the focus has shifted to achieving sustainable price stability. This change suggests that inflation in Europe is stabilizing around 2%, and the ECB's goal is now to maintain that stability rather than pursue aggressive inflation control. Economic growth woes. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal took a more straightforward approach, stating that the ECB had no choice but to cut rates, with more reductions possibly on the horizon. The article pointed out that the Eurozone's economy is teetering on the edge of recession, with GDP growth for 2024 projected at a mere 0.7%. This sluggish growth has overtaken inflation as the ECB's primary concern, particularly since inflation has been successfully reined in. Currency concerns. During the post-meeting press conference, Lagarde addressed an intriguing question about the euro's continued depreciation against the dollar. Her response was reminiscent of statements from China's central bank. The ECB does not target exchange rates. Instead, she emphasized that the bank's focus remains on Europe's broader economic health, including growth and employment. For context, when the Chinese yuan depreciates against the dollar, China often reassures the public by pointing to the yuan's relative strength against other currencies, such as the euro or the yen. However, given the euro's own depreciation against the dollar, the broader picture suggests a systemic weakening of major currencies, which could impact foreign reserve quality. Wall Street's reaction. Wall Street has reacted positively to the ECB's decision. Analysts believe it increases the likelihood of the Federal Reserve following suit with a 25 basis point rate cut next week. A coordinated easing by major central banks could provide much-needed support to global markets as growth concerns loom large. In summary, the ECB's rate cut signals a strategic pivot toward supporting economic growth while maintaining inflation stability. As Europe grapples with near-recession conditions, all eyes are now on how the Federal Reserve will respond. The second major news to share with you is about President-elect Donald Trump. Today, he's dominating headlines across the US, and there are three key updates about him that you should know. First, Trump invites Xi Jinping to his inauguration, drama or diplomacy? Yesterday afternoon, CBS dropped a bombshell report claiming that Donald Trump has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration. The news has ignited debates across American and international media, while also sparking widespread discussion among Chinese netizens. Reactions have been mixed. Some view Trump's move as reckless, questioning the appropriateness of inviting a dictator to such an event, while others are curious about whether Xi will actually accept the invitation. Let's break down this story using two key reports that shed light on the situation and help us evaluate the likelihood of Xi attending. Reuters, a political stunt that's unlikely to materialize. Reuters covered the story with the headline, Trump invites China's Xi to inauguration, experts call it political theater. The report highlights Trump's invitation as unprecedented and unlikely to materialize, noting that it could even raise concerns in Taiwan. Here's what Reuters reported. A spokesperson for Trump's transition team stated on Thursday that the president-elect had extended invitations to Xi Jinping and other foreign leaders for the inauguration ceremony in Washington next month. When asked whether Xi had responded, Trump's spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, told Fox News that it was to be determined. She declined to name other invited world leaders but described the invitations as part of Trump's efforts to foster dialogue with both allies and rivals. Experts, however, are skeptical. Scott Kennedy, a China analyst at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, dismissed the idea as mere political theater. No foreign head of state, let alone Xi Jinping, will attend a US presidential inauguration, he said. The report also touched on Taiwan's perspective. Bonnie Glaser, a Taiwan expert at the German Marshall Fund, noted that the invitation could unsettle Taiwan. Trump's election victory initially raised hopes in Taiwan for a tougher US stance on China, but also sparked concerns over his comments that Taiwan should pay the US for defense support. Bloomberg, why she won't show up. Bloomberg took a deep dive into the plausibility of this invitation, offering 3 key reasons why Xi attending is essentially impossible. 1. Historical precedent. Since 1874, there has been no record of a foreign head of state attending a US presidential inauguration. It's simply not in line with American traditions, making the invitation more symbolic than practical. 2. Political risks for Xi. Trump is known for his unscripted and unpredictable remarks, which could pose significant risks for Xi. Bloomberg cited a recent example where Trump jokingly referred to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as a great governor, and called Canada the 51st state. Such off-the-cuff comments could be deeply embarrassing for Xi, who values carefully managed appearances. 3. Cultural and practical barriers. According to Bloomberg, Xi would never accept the conditions of attending an American inauguration. Foreign leaders are not seated on the main stage with the incoming president, instead, they're relegated to the audience, which would be a hard pill for a leader like Xi to swallow. Additionally, Washington's frigid January weather poses another hurdle. Bloomberg humorously referenced the viral image of Senator Bernie Sanders bundled up in a parka, mask, and mittens during President Biden's 2021 inauguration, imagining Xi in a similar situation, shivering in the cold, wrapped in scarves and heavy coats. Such an image is entirely incompatible with Xi's cultivated image of authority and control. Conclusion: just political gossip. Ultimately, both reports point to the same conclusion: Trump's invitation is more of a symbolic gesture or political stunt than a serious diplomatic overture. From Xi's perspective, the practical, cultural, and political barriers make attending entirely unrealistic. For now, it's best to treat this story as an amusing bit of political gossip rather than a serious international event. The second reason Trump is dominating headlines today involves 2 separate events he cleverly merged into one, a classic Trump move. Let's break it down. Trump, as we know, has 2 defining labels: the businessman and real estate developer, and a media-savvy television personality. He's a master at orchestrating publicity and spinning narratives. Yesterday, Time magazine announced Donald Trump as its 2024 Person of the Year. On the same day, Trump also scheduled a high-profile appearance at the New York Stock Exchange to ring the opening bell. These events were originally independent, but Trump skillfully combined them into one grand media spectacle. At the NYSE, the backdrop for his bell-ringing ceremony prominently featured the Time magazine cover, framing the event as a celebration of his Person of the Year honor. Reuters covered these 2 events in a way that offers fascinating insight into the underlying narratives. Time's Person of the Year, Trump's second win. This isn't Trump's first-time Person of the Year recognition. He also earned the honor in 2016 after winning the presidential election. Trump has always taken this title seriously, almost obsessively. Back in 2022, he openly grumbled about being passed over and questioned why others, like Angela Merkel, were chosen instead. He famously criticized Merkel's selection, claiming she had ruined Germany, and insisted the magazine had picked the wrong person. According to Time's editor-in-chief, Trump was chosen this year for his historic comeback, his role in a once-in-a-generation political realignment, and his reshaping of the US presidency and America's global position. While the statement doesn't lean heavily into praise or critique, it underscores Trump's undeniable impact on both domestic and international affairs. NYSE bell ringing, a corporate power play. To commemorate his Time magazine recognition, Trump turned his NYSE appearance into another headline-grabbing moment. The entire setup was curated to showcase his Time cover while also signaling to corporate America that he's back and ready to support business and Wall Street. The event was meticulously planned, with a star-studded guest list that included his wife Melania, daughters Ivanka and Tiffany, running mate J.D. Vance, and Treasury Secretary nominee Basil Bessent. Ivanka's appearance, in particular, made waves, as she has largely stayed out of Trump's spotlight since his campaign began. Also present were major corporate leaders, including Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon and Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser. Their attendance sent a clear message: Trump wants to strengthen ties with the business community and position himself as a pro-business president. During the ceremony, Trump doubled down on his promise to slash corporate taxes further, proposing a cut from the current 21% to 15%. Of course, this plan would require congressional approval, but it signals his determination to champion corporate growth and appease Wall Street. In classic Trump fashion, he turned what could have been two routine events into a coordinated narrative of triumph and strategy, solidifying his return to political and economic prominence. The third major headline involving Donald Trump today revolves around his Time magazine interview, published in full as part of his recognition as Person of the Year. Conducted on November 25, the interview sheds critical light on Trump's stance regarding the Ukraine war, marking the first time he has explicitly detailed his approach to the conflict. Trump's strategy on Ukraine: leverage aid as a bargaining chip. In a headline-grabbing piece, Bloomberg reported, Trump vows to use Ukraine aid as leverage against Russia. The president-elect emphasized his desire to broker a deal to end the war and criticized Ukraine's missile strikes targeting Russian territory. According to Times report, Trump outlined his plan to leverage U.S. support for Ukraine as a key bargaining tool to pressure Russia into negotiations. Historically, Trump has expressed skepticism about continuing U.S. aid to Ukraine, a stance that has drawn both scrutiny and speculation. When asked directly whether he would sustain aid to Kiev, Trump responded, "I want to make a deal. The only way to achieve consensus is to maintain leverage." At the same time, Trump voiced strong opposition to Ukraine's missile strikes inside Russia, saying, "I strongly oppose launching missiles hundreds of miles into Russia. Why do that?" Clarifying misconceptions about Trump's Ukraine policy. This interview provides critical insight into Trump's principles for negotiating with Russia, contrasting with earlier signals from his campaign. In the past, Trump's team suggested he might cut off support to Ukraine entirely. These rumors were amplified recently by his eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., who posted videos criticizing U.S. aid to Ukraine, accusing Kiev of corruption and misusing funds. Such statements had fueled widespread speculation that Trump might adopt a policy favoring Putin or push for a ceasefire heavily skewed toward Russia. However, Times interview clarifies Trump's approach. The president-elect articulated two key points. 1. Leverage, not withdrawal. Trump intends to use aid as a bargaining tool to compel Russia to agree to a ceasefire, not to abruptly cut off support to Ukraine. 2. Balanced criticism. While advocating for negotiations, Trump also criticized Ukraine's military tactics, particularly strikes within Russian borders, signaling a nuanced position. These comments represent a significant departure from earlier media portrayals of Trump's Ukraine policy, providing a clearer picture of his potential strategy. Rather than unequivocally siding with one party, Trump's remarks suggest he aims to balance the need for diplomacy with strategic pressure. This shift is a noteworthy development and offers a more constructive outlook on how the next administration may approach the ongoing conflict. Today's third update focuses on three key developments regarding the escalating situation in Syria. First, Israel's military actions amid regional tensions. A Bloomberg report titled "Israel Continues Military Operations in Syria Despite Backlash" reveals intensifying Israeli strikes following the sudden collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime. The report highlights Israel's rationale for these operations, preventing advanced weaponry from falling into the hands of terrorist groups. Key details from the report. Israeli Defense Forces (IDF) announced that their troops continue to target threats and terrorist positions along the Syrian border. During recent operations, IDF forces seized multiple Syrian tanks and uncovered a former Syrian military outpost containing a stockpile of weapons, including mines, explosives, anti-tank missiles, and other military equipment. Later in the day, Syrian state television reported an Israeli airstrike on the port of Latakia. Meanwhile, Israel has expressed growing concerns about the SAM Liberation Forces, a group instrumental in toppling Assad, despite their outward opposition to terrorism. Israel's distrust of the SAM Liberation Forces. Bloomberg underscores a deeper layer of Israel's actions, its mistrust of the SAM Liberation Forces. While Europe and the US have shown a relaxed attitude toward the group, viewing it as a stabilizing force, Israel remains wary. This skepticism stems from the group's origins as a splinter faction of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Despite rebranding efforts, Israel perceives the group as a potential long-term threat. Israel's strategic objectives. Israel's military strategy reveals its dual concerns. 1. Preventing weapon access by terrorist groups. Israel asserts that advanced weaponry must not fall into the hands of ISIS or other extremist organizations. 2. Blocking the Sam Liberation Forces' rise. Despite the group's opposition to ISIS, Israel worries that weapons controlled by the Sam Liberation Forces could one day be turned against Israel itself. This dual focus explains Israel's aggressive and increasing military actions in Syria, even after the fall of Assad. For Israel, the stakes are high. Relinquishing control of these weapons to any group, whether openly hostile terrorists or the seemingly reformed Sam Liberation Forces, poses an unacceptable risk. Broader implications. The report offers a crucial perspective on Israel's strategic calculations. The deep-seated distrust of regional actors highlights the complexity of post-Assad Syria and the ongoing regional instability. Israel's proactive stance reflects not only its immediate security concerns but also its broader judgment about Syria's uncertain future. The second key update comes from another Bloomberg report titled "Russia Nears Deal with New Syria Leaders to Keep Army Bases." This development sheds light on the complexities of the Syrian crisis. Russia's strategic bases on the Mediterranean. Russia has long maintained two critical naval bases along Syria's Mediterranean coast. These bases are not only central to Russia's influence in Syria but also serve as strategic hubs for projecting Russian power across the African continent. Following the political upheaval in Syria and the fall of Bashar al-Assad, many international analysts anticipated that Russia might lose access to these bases. However, the latest news reveals that Russia has reached an informal understanding with the Sam Liberation Forces, the new dominant faction in Syria, allowing it to retain its bases. The Sam Liberation Forces concessions. This agreement highlights the Sam Liberation Forces' current limitations in dealing with foreign powers operating within Syria. Despite their initial hardline stance, the group appears to be making concessions to consolidate their control over the Syrian government. Earlier, before entering Damascus, the Sam Liberation Forces issued a strong ultimatum demanding that all foreign military organizations leave Syria by December 10. Yet, this new understanding with Russia demonstrates a significant softening of their position. Implications of the agreement. 1. Strategic compromises by the Sam Liberation Forces. The group's willingness to tolerate Russian military presence suggests a pragmatic approach to securing their authority. By accommodating Russia, they likely aim to avoid immediate conflict with a powerful actor and gain time to stabilize their rule. 2. Russia's continued influence in Syria. The agreement enables Russia to preserve its strategic foothold in the Mediterranean, maintaining its role as a key player in the region's geopolitics. Broader context. This development underscores the fluid and multifaceted nature of the Syrian political landscape. The Sam Liberation Forces, despite their new dominance, are still navigating a delicate balance between asserting their control and managing relationships with foreign powers like Russia. For Russia, this deal represents a critical victory in safeguarding its long-term strategic interests in the region. The third related report, also from Bloomberg, is titled "Turkish Spy Chief Visits Syria in Rush for Influence After Assad." This event highlights the geopolitical maneuvering in Syria as various nations vie for power and influence in the aftermath of Bashar al-Assad's ousting. Turkey's high-profile visit. Ibrahim Kalin, Turkey's top intelligence official, made a rare public visit to Damascus, Syria's capital, on Thursday. During his trip, Kalin held talks with leaders of the Sam Liberation Forces at the historic Umayyad Mosque. This meeting underscores Turkey's intent to solidify or expand its influence in the region. Notably, Turkey currently backs an armed faction known as the Syrian National Army. This relationship adds another layer of complexity to Turkey's involvement in Syria, reflecting its strategic interests and desire to maintain a foothold in the country's shifting power dynamics. External pressures on Syria's new leadership. This report, alongside the previous updates, paints a picture of a Syria caught in a web of competing external forces. The fall of Assad has left the Sam Liberation Forces overstretched and struggling to manage these pressures. Despite their military successes, they face significant challenges in dealing with various foreign powers, each seeking to assert or preserve their influence. Potential outcomes and risks. The situation raises questions about Syria's stability. 1. Renewed chaos. The interplay of foreign interests, coupled with the internal challenges faced by the Sam Liberation Forces, risks plunging Syria back into chaos or even reigniting a full-scale civil war. 2. Continued power struggles. The presence of multiple external actors, such as Russia, Turkey, and Israel, underscores an ongoing power struggle that could further destabilize the region. 3. Uncertain leadership. The SAM Liberation Force's ability to consolidate power and navigate these challenges remains uncertain, leaving the country's future in flux. Broader implications. This sequence of events underscores the fragility of Syria's current situation. The fall of Assad has not brought stability but instead opened the door to intensified geopolitical competition. Syria's path forward will likely depend on how its new leaders manage these external pressures while attempting to restore domestic order. Continued monitoring of developments in Syria is crucial as the situation remains highly volatile, with significant regional and international implications. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.